Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Distinguished delegates and permanent representatives. Allow me to begin by expressing Rwanda's deep appreciation to the organizers of this important commemoration. The Kingdom of Morocco, the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention, and the responsibility to protect and their partners. We commend your leadership in marking the 4th International Day for Countering Hate Speech with the timely focus on the intersection of hate speech and artificial intelligence. Excellency Chair, I'm particularly delighted to be here today and to meet and listen to Professor Stanton. I want to commend you, Professor, for your enormous contribution to the scholarly work on genocide studies, which has helped to shape post-genocide jurisdictions. And I say this based on my own experience as former Prosecutor General of Rwanda, who was involved in prosecuting genocide cases for 10 years, and also worked with the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. So I can confirm that your scholarly work is the leading academic work on this subject. And thank you also for referring to the media trial in Arusha, which resolved a very contentious issue of where do we draw the line between free speech and free expression that are protected and hate speech that is criminal. The judicial demarcation was drawn in that trial. The trial of Ferdinand Nahimana, Hassan Ngeze, and Jabo Skobarayagwiza. So at least the United Nations and their entities should not have a confusion about that. And in that case, inference was drawn from different constitutions in the national jurisdictions. The most liberal constitutions were referred to and analyzed. And that was consciously done such that the jurisprudence to be set was to be international. So the Tribunal for Rwanda has resolved that problem. Tech companies and whoever wants to understand where do we end with protected speech and deal with the criminal speech, the judicial guidance is there. So thank you very much, Prof, for referring to that case. This first ever resolution on hate speech marked a significant milestone in advancing global efforts to counter this growing threat, especially in the digital context. Today, while the platforms and the tools may have changed, the threat remains. Online hate, now accelerated by AI-generated content and algorithmic amplification, spreads faster than truth, radicalizes communities, and undermines the foundations of peace we have worked hard to build. Behind every slur and every viral image, there are real consequences for real people. Rwanda strongly supports a coordinated global approach to regulating AI and digital platforms rooted in international human rights law. As called for in the Global Digital Compact, we must urgently prioritize artificial intelligence governance and ethical safeguards, particularly in areas affecting vulnerable communities. Mr. Excellency Chair, allow me to draw attention to Rwanda's experience that underpins deep conviction on this issue. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi taught us that the devastating consequences of unchecked hate speech, enabled by a systematic incitement to hatred, radio broadcasts, newspapers, and state rhetoric, dehumanized the Tutsi. Hate speech ultimately paved the way to one of the worst atrocities in the 20th century. Artificial intelligence and automated content tools are increasingly being used to translate, replicate, and amplify these messages, making them harder to trace and more difficult to count. to counter. As Rwanda continues to confront the lingering presence of this dangerous ideology, we witness the persistence of hate and the urgency of building stronger safeguards in law, technology, and governance. Excellency Chair, in this regard, it is important that, among others, the following priorities that we believe are essential for an effective global response must be considered. First, we must invest in data-driven monitoring mechanisms that go beyond surface-level detection. Current moderation systems often overlook hate speech when expressed in non-dominant languages or cloaked in coded languages. Professor Stanton knows, and he made a reference about cockroaches or going to work. Going to work, which must be something ordinarily good, but in the context that is specific, it meant going to kill people. To be effective, monitoring must be multilingual, culturally aware, and capable of identifying emerging patterns before they escalate. In regions like ours, where the echoes of past atrocities remain painfully close, early warning systems must be informed by real-time disaggregated data that reflect the specific vulnerabilities of targeted communities. Secondly, any meaningful response must be context-specific. Too often, interventions are detached from the histories, power dynamics, and social fractures that make certain communities more susceptible to hate-fueled violence. And lastly, we must adopt an inclusive and multi-stakeholder approach to both policy and practice. Governments alone cannot solve this problem, nor can technology companies act as the sole drivers. We must include and empower all actors, including civil society and the private sector, to disrupt harmful narratives through access to resources, capacity building, decision-making platforms at both national and global levels. To conclude, Excellency Chair, Rwanda believes that hate speech is not only dangerous, it incites violence, it erodes social cohesion, and opens old wounds. It threatens to pull us backward. We must not allow the digital age to be a breeding ground for the ideologies we vowed never to tolerate again. Let us ensure that our digital spaces serve as engines of inclusion and not instruments of division. Thank you.